Are you guys ready? Me. Okay.
JD 20?
What did he say? We're on? We're on? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Cleveland Community Police Commission special makeup meeting for our last meeting that was supposed to be held Wednesday, June 26th. So we're holding it today, July 1st, 2024, at our CPC office located at 3631 Perkins Avenue. We're going to call the meeting to order. We welcome you guys that came out today and those that are watching us online. I'm going to start with a roll call for attendance. Co-Chair Adams,
Present.
Commissioner Benito,
Present.
Commissioner Chura,
Present.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Present.
Commissioner Early,
Present.
Commissioner Gary Ferguson,
Present.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Present.
Commissioner Reeves,
Present.
Commissioner Ridgway is on leave, Commissioner Van Leer,
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez is not here, Commissioner Wong is not here, and myself, Commissioner Zayed, I am present. We're going to move to the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda they want to make?
Yeah, I have two additions for the Budget and Grants Committee report. We have the NACO approval of NACO funds for commissioners who want to go to that conference this year, and also the grants management decision. Both of these are coming out of the Budget and Grants Committee.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to add discussion to accept the budget for our NACO trip later, and also to discuss and possibly pass the topic of the grants management. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion or debate? Okay, so we'll call the vote to add these two items to the agenda. Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Chura,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Aye.
Commissioner Early, Commissioner Gary Ferguson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
Aye.
Commissioner, oh, and I vote aye. The motion passes. So those things will be added to our agenda under the Budgets and Grants Committee report. Okay, so as always, we ask people to just acknowledge and read the portion on our agenda related to the meeting decorum. So I would just ask everyone to take a look at that and be mindful of that. We're going to move on to approval of meeting minutes. Were the meeting minutes sent out?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there any,
There's four, you should pass them by meeting, I think. So, John, you should have them, in your inbox.
We do have them.
okay. Did everybody have a chance to look at the past meeting minutes for those previous meetings? So we're going to approve all four meetings tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve all four meeting minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion or debate or any changes that need to be made?
I don't have any changes. I was away for the March meeting, so if we're voting as a group, I'll have to abstain, I guess.
Okay. One second. Can you just add the dates to this later and we just call the vote? Yeah, okay. So I'll call the vote. Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Chura,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Aye.
Commissioner Early,
Abstain.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson,
Abstain.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
Abstain.
and I vote aye. Okay, that passes, so those were approved. We're going to move forward to our public comment section of the meeting agenda. Does anyone have any public comment? All right, if no one has any public comment, we're going to move on. Calling once, calling twice? Okay. So we're going to, yeah, we can revisit at the end if there's time. So we're going to move on to our co-chair report given by Co-Chair Adams.
We'll keep this brief. So just a quick update on our records. So where we are with our records is that essentially I think if not all, maybe a few records requests are still outstanding. We are still not able to come up with some type of solution to the bigger comprehensive file. So we wanted like the larger files, and we were able to see the model in the IA Pro, and we were hoping that we would be able to get some type of like limited access that would allow the commission to be able to kind of see like what's in the folders, what's in the files, what's in the table of contents. But as we presently stand, we are being told that we cannot get that access from the vendor. And so there is sort of a request for us to adjust that records request, but we are not going to adjust that records request until we have some type of resolution as to how we will get the records that we need to finish the rest of our work. I guess the other thing that I would like to remind the commission of is I think that it'll probably be in the training report, but we do have another training event, I believe, coming up. And essentially, just to remind the public that we are here from 4:30 to 5:30. It was nice because we actually had a couple community members come in today, so that was good that we had people coming in. And then lastly, I think that the one thing I would like to remind the chairs of the committees is that we would like to, now that I think we've got Garrett Ferguson back, Donaldson's been on training, we've got more stability on the committee, so we would like to schedule those executive committee meetings so that we have them on the calendar as well.
Thank you, Co-Chair Adams. We're going to move on to our Executive Director report given by Jason Goodrick, Interim Executive Director.
Okay, good evening. I'll start with staff update. We did make an offer to replace our communications and engagement person who has been vacant since December. We've gone through this process several times. We had an acceptance fall through, and now we made another offer, and that one happened right before the cyber incident. So that put us about 3 weeks behind on that getting approved. So it's unfortunate, but that person is waiting and enthusiastically trying to get onboarded here. So as soon as HR approves it and finance approves it, we'll be moving forward with that. Tomorrow we begin interviews for our community engagement coordinator, which is more of a face-to-face engagement position, whereas the other one is digital communications. And we have a committee of myself, Janita Thomas, and we always involve one commissioner for oversight purposes and just to have that trust. And this time around, it's going to be Commissioner Reeves. So we are interviewing 12 candidates over the next 2 days for that position. And then when we get to budgets and grants, we'll hear about how we're going to try and amplify some staffing here in the office. Based on the mid-year budget report, we have some surplus in staffing because of our vacancies. We're trying to use that creatively to amplify our staff, get some more positions on a temporary or part-time basis so that we can advance the work forward and get some of our consent decree stuff in compliance faster. That's the general plan. And Commissioner Adams already gave, Co-Chair Adams already gave the update on records requests, so that's all I have today.
Thank you. We're moving on to our committee status reports. We're going to start with the Rules Committee, and this report is given by Commissioner Pete Van Leer.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Tonight we have three main things we're going to discuss and put forward for a vote. I'd like to start with the first one is the Commissioner Accountability Rules. I'll make a motion that we pass this tonight, if possible.
I move,
I made a motion.
oh, I second, sorry. I second.
Okay, so this was sent out a while ago. We spent some time looking at how we hold ourselves accountable. And that is, we looked at two different main pieces of it, is like the in meeting versus out of meeting. And just at a very high level, just, we're talking about what happens when somebody's conduct in a meeting is disruptive or problematic. If it happens twice, then in two different meetings, then the chair of the committee in the second meeting should move to, I don't have it in front of me, but move through the discipline process for that. If there are outside, things are happening outside of meetings, there's another process around, sorry, I'm distracted for some reason. I had it in front of me and now I don't, but it's basically looking at a the informal conversations to solve the problem and directly address it with the commissioner in question. And if that doesn't work, then it goes to a conversation with the co-chairs. After that, there's a letter of censure. And if that still doesn't work, there's a step to remove from committees. The in-meeting violations move more directly to the removal from committees. And these are decisions that are made at the full commission level in votes. So it's not just, so it's very formalized that way. And then there's also a co-chair accountability piece at the end that allows for a co-chair to be removed with a vote and a new one to be elected. So that's just my very high-level summary. I don't know if there are questions to that, co-chair.
Yeah, everyone should have reviewed this. It was in your inbox some time ago. If, you guys have any questions or comments. Okay, we're going to call for the vote. Do you have a? Okay, and this is for the Commissioner Accountability Rule. Co-Chair Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Chura,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Aye.
Commissioner Early, Commissioner Garrett Ferguson,
Nay.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
Aye.
and I vote yes. It passes 9-1. Thank you very much.
Okay, co-chair, thank you. Our next item is our motions and decorum rule that's come out through the committee. And I will make a motion that this be passed tonight.
I'll second.
We're up for the discussion and debate.
Yeah. So I'll just briefly mention, this is about the goal of this document, and other members of the committee can refer to it. I mean, Charles, Commissioner Donaldson had a role in drafting this. The goal is to provide a brief summary of how to make motions during meetings and decorum. So rather than having this big Robert's Rules book that we have to know, this is like a relatively brief piece of work that's around, how do we make a motion? How do we discuss it? How do we maintain decorum in meetings? There is one correction at the end. It's really just grammatical. There's at the very end, there's a section with 4 A, B, C, D points, and section C, as it currently stands, should actually be C and D. And I can explain that more if that's needed. But otherwise, hopefully, you've all had a chance to look at it, and if there's any questions, we can address them.
Okay, so are there any questions or anything about that? Okay, so we can move forward with the vote to possibly vote this rule in with those corrections. So you wanted to make those with those corrections that you stated at the end.
Yeah, I can explain it if that would be helpful, Co-Chair.
Yeah, just to put it on the
Yeah,
record.
it's section C at the end under additional decorum rules. Currently, it's one block that says, talks about a commissioner may make a motion to postpone a motion, to postpone a motion before the commission. And the very last sentence says a motion cannot be added under a committee report unless it was approved by a majority of committee members in a committee meeting. So that should be a separate item. So that would be item D, and then the current item D would be item E.
Okay. Okay,
So
so
it's that
we're,
straightforward.
okay, we're gonna call for the vote with, that correction that Commissioner Van Leer asked for. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, so Co-Chair Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Nay.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Nay.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
And I vote yes. That rule passes 8-2.
Okay, our next item that came out of the Rules Committee is the Evidentiary Hearings Manual. And I would like to make a motion that we pass this tonight.
I'll second.
So I can just give a brief explanation. So a lot of work has gone into this Evidentiary Hearings Manual over many months, especially in the past couple of months. We had initially had a draft from Mr. Bilat. We discussed it a couple of months ago in a joint Rules and Accountability Committee meeting that both committees came together. And we had a lot of input from a number of people, including Commissioner Wong and Brandon Mordew, a lawyer who's been involved with some different work groups. And we took all that. At one point, Commissioner Wong had said she was working on a draft, but that was not shared with us. And so a group of us in the Rules Committee worked with Mr. Bilat, and we discussed it in depth at the last Rules Committee meeting and passed it there. We've also had some other eyes on it. And so this version, which actually you have in front of you on paper, took a lot of that input, and we've really tried to craft something that answered the concerns and questions that were raised. And also we wanted to streamline it. We had a longer version, but we really thought it was important to keep it short and to the point. And so that's what we have.
I'll add that between Rules Committee meetings, Accountability Committee meetings, joint Rules and Accountability committee meetings, I think that this draft was worked on in just committee meetings for at least 7 hours, and then additional time was spent outside of those meetings between commissioners and working with Martin. And so a lot of extensive time has gone into the development of this. And it really lays out kind of step by step what it will look like for us to intake cases, start the process of creating a file, bringing the case to the accountability committee, making the decision about whether to send that case to the full commission for an evidentiary hearing, and then as well as the steps that would occur during an evidentiary hearing, and then also what the commission would look at and what kind of decision it would make, in addition to having templates in the back for letters that would be sent to officers and other members of the division, and information for how the meetings will be publicly noticed, and then also decision forms for how we would build this out. So a lot of really extensive work has gone into this. I think that one of the most important things to point out is that in the first draft of the manual, there was in the charter gives us two main reasons why we can change officer discipline, and specifically increase officer discipline, and apart from the fact that the charter gives us the ability to decrease officer discipline if an officer has been disciplined in retaliation. But for one is like misapplication of discipline, but then also concern of the community. And so in the first draft of this, one of the reasons why we could make a decision to change discipline was kind of trying to capture that concern of the community or kind of harm to the community. And while I think that through our discussions, we believe that that is still an important thing for us to look at for the future. As we get started with this, that has been narrowed to when the discipline matrix has been misapplied. So right now, as per this manual, we would only be changing, specifically increasing an officer's discipline if the discipline that was given to the officer is a misapplication of the discipline matrix. And so I do think that there's a potential for the future after we do a few of these cases and we feel like we know that this process works, that we could revisit that and say that you know, we want to be able to say even if the matrix was correctly applied, that there's still you know, the harm that was done to the community was so severe that we need to go beyond the matrix. But just because, you know, this is the first time we're doing this, we want to make sure that we get it right. We are kind of limiting it to that. Now, that being said, there are a lot of current cases where the discipline matrix is not being applied correctly. So there are tons, well, I won't say tons, but I mean many significant amounts of cases where officers are being disciplined below what the disciplinary matrix says they should be disciplined for the charges that they're being found to be sustained. So I think that's just something, and that was something that Mr. Mordew brought up some concerns about, was the what's it called when it's not objective? Subjective nature of how do we decide that a case is concerning to the community or harms the community. But I do think that there's space for us to continue to grow in this and to go beyond just the matrix for the future. But I think that it's a wise decision for now to keep it to the matrix in order just to protect us and to protect this process until we know that this process works and is being done correctly.
May I ask a question? Okay. Sorry. No, I'm just coming back and I'm like getting caught up on this, and I'm glad that a lot of stuff had been addressed and this version has been condensed because I was reading the other version, but I just had a few more questions. So one of the questions that I had was about in the part 2.69, the evidentiary hearings. It looks like the officer and the executive director gets to like speak more than the compliant. Like it doesn't, there's only one opportunity for them to speak, but is there a allowance like for questioning? I see questions for additional witnesses if summoned, but is there an opportunity for the CPC to ask the complainant more questions? And then even looking at the pre-hearing procedures, there's a lot about a brief that the officers can put together, and including counsel. What is that equivalent for the complainant? Like, what can they send? I know they can make a complaint, but what if they have additional documents or different, like, is there any opportunity for them to bring in more things, create a brief, and if there any opportunity for them to be asked additional questions during the hearing?
This on? Okay. Yes. Great question. So the way that this is structured right now, the complainant should have already given everything through the IA investigation or the OPS investigation. Mm-hmm. And so,
what if they did it outside?
What do you mean?
Because on the other page it says that they can come to us to make a complaint directly.
Right. So they would make a complaint to us directly. If they have not gone through OPS yet, at that point we would send them to OPS to do an investigation, and then at that point, if then they complete it, CPRB makes its recommendation, and then they're not satisfied with what happened, at that point, then they would come to us. So we shouldn't be seeing cases that are being brought by a complainant that have not gone through the OPS CPRB process.
Okay.
So with that, and I think part of the challenge is we are not reinvestigating these cases. We are looking at the investigation that happened and then looking at what was sustained or not sustained and then looking at what the discipline was, like the final discipline decision, and based on the information in the investigation, based on that, then was the discipline matrix correctly followed. So in most cases, you know, because we are not an investigative body, so it would be, you know, without hiring an investigator, without creating an investigatory branch, it would be difficult for us to like have full-blown investigations. So I think that a couple options, like the person, if they did have additional evidence they wanted to bring, I think they can bring that up in the public comment. And they would also have the opportunity to give public comment when the case is discussed in the accountability committee. So they can come.
Before that hearing. When you say in accountability, you mean before the actual hearing?
Yes, before
Okay.
the actual hearing. So
Okay.
let's say that they came while we were discussing the case. They have the opportunity to make public comment. They also, you know, meet with the CPC office when they are doing the intake. So if they had additional information that wasn't covered in the OPS investigation, then they could give that information at intake. They could make public comment during the accountability committee, and then they can also do it in the, like, in public comment. So my thought is that when it's the kind of the CPC is kind of the de facto person that is representing the interest of the community,
Yes.
right, in which includes the complainant. So when the kind of argument that you know, that information of the complainant would be included in the brief that the executive director is putting together. Now, in terms of, I am not imagining that there's going to be a lot of cases where there's new information, because OPS does a very extensive investigation. So we have a case that we've now gone through this initial process to decide on an evidentiary hearing. You know, the kind of materials that we had to review included all of the OPS interviews, so including the interview with the complainant, the full investigative report, the report from the CPRB, body cam footage, the report from the transcript of the public safety hearing, the transcript of, you know, so, I mean, there's extensive evidence. So
So
yeah, go ahead.
So why are we allowing the officer to do a brief? I guess that's where it's confusing, because we're only looking at what has been presented, what has been completed in OPS. So I'm not understanding then if we decide to like do a hearing, why would we give the officer a chance to submit a brief, but the complainant couldn't submit anything?
Because we're looking at, because the executive director's brief, so the brief coming out of the CPC, is supposed to represent the interest of the community, which would include that person. So that person is coming to us and saying, hey, and if I'm misspeaking in any way or if there's a better way to explain it, please jump in, but that's being covered by the executive director, basically.
Is that the report that is originally given to the accountability committee, or is that a
It's-
part of a separate?
It's a separate report. So there's
Okay.
a case report that's created, and that case report is a summary of all of the information, of going through all of the OPS files, all of the hearing transcripts, looking at relevant case law. Then they put that together and say, this is, you know, these were the charges, this is what CPRB found, this is what the public safety, this is what was argued in the hearing with the public safety director, this is what the outcome was, this is what this is what, looking at the matrix, this is what the discipline should have been if you were following the matrix based on the mitigating factors or the aggravating factors. And then all of that, based on all of that, this is what, you know, how we're viewing the case, the CPC office is viewing the case, and then using that is what the accountability committee uses to make a decision about whether to send it to an evidentiary hearing. And then using that as a springboard, doing kind of additional information, that is then what the executive director uses and other people in the CBC office use to make the final case brief that will then go to the full commission.
Got it. Are commissioners helping with the case summary that the executive director does, or the recommendation letter that is sent after accountability? Like, is there anybody designated, like accountability chair, or anybody to help the executive director do that?
So nobody is designated to like do it with them. However, during the process of the accountability committee meeting to go over the case report and make that decision, at that point things could be recommended of, hey, we think that this needs to be considered, and all the primary documents are sent. So we received all of these different files. You know, I know accountability committee members spent hours and hours and hours going through all of that. And if there was something that was included in those primary documents that didn't take a prominent, didn't show up in a prominent way during the case report, then we might say, hey, we think this needs to be included. So I think that is, in a lot of, from I think going through this process to start, I think that the case report has a lot of the bones of what the brief will have. And so I think in looking at the case report, you can really see, I think you can kind of see what the argument is going to be. And so that is, I think, a place where you would kind of check that and say, hey, I think this is really the most critical piece, or this needs to be expanded on, or I didn't see this mentioned and I thought this was a really important piece of information.
Okay, and last question, I'm sorry. The community harm piece, since that's mentioned in the charter, is there any language that maybe can be added to this that says, like, in the future, we will put maybe a rubric or some type of document that will guide when we need to look at discipline for community harm? Because I'm thinking without that even being stated somewhere in here about community harm, that would put us out of compliance with the charter.
I don't believe we are out of compliance with the charter with that. I think our rules state that we can change our rules at any time, so I'm not sure that putting something in that says in the future we may change it is necessary. But
or just address it like there's like somehow we're gonna think about community harm, because if community harm is explicitly listed in the charter and that language isn't in here at all, I'm just concerned about.
So I think I guess I would disagree in that, like, so we're talking about community harm that goes beyond, like, community harm if the disciplinary matrix is followed. Let's say the disciplinary matrix says that someone should be disciplined for between 14 days and 6 months, and they're disciplined 2 months, right? Based on that, if all the kind of factors in the case, it shows that that was the range that, based on, the findings that we agree with by CPRB, was followed and the discipline was given that way, then right now we couldn't then add more discipline because this falls within the appropriate application of the matrix. So we are still addressing community harm. It's just we're not addressing community harm past what the disciplinary matrix currently says it should be. Now, this was something that we went back and forth a lot on, so I think want to make sure, like, this is still about addressing community harm, and I think that right now where we're at is this is what the disciplinary matrix says the discipline should be. In a lot of the cases, we're seeing down here, like, in terms of the discipline that's actually being given. And right now, it's looking at, let's get it to where the actual GPOs and the disciplinary matrix is being followed. And then the other piece that we discussed is, what is the best way to make sure that, these things aren't happening, and that discipline is being given when police need to be held accountable. And one of the ways that we talked about is not necessarily just increasing the discipline beyond the disciplinary matrix. It would be to actually go to the disciplinary matrix and change the disciplinary matrix so that then when these things are happening, we're increasing the discipline that needs to be given to these officers, because we're saying the community harm that is being done when these rules are being broken and these officers are doing these things is so serious that it shouldn't be a 3-day suspension. It shouldn't be a 4-day suspension.
Have
So
we
in
looked
turn,
at the disciplinary matrix, or that's separate?
have
from
I
this?
looked at it?
Or like, have we started the process of trying to change it? Okay.
Yes, we have. We're
Okay.
in the process of like reviewing it and making changes right now. That'll be in the accountability committee report, but that it's now going to the policy committee. So it's not to say that we don't want to have that ability to do that in the future, but it's just as right now with never having done this before, and also no other police commission in the country even having the power to do this. This is going to be a really big learning process for us to see what works, and we think it's going to be a bigger, that we could face a lot more significant legal challenges to try to implement it with, if it goes beyond that, but I still think that it's still addressing community harm.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to add that I think the rationale behind sticking to the matrix right now, we still have some questions about wanting to, not questions, but we want to make sure that we're appearing to be fair. And we understand that the charter says, you know, that we will respond to community needs and concerns regarding regulation, but that doesn't mean that we can't use that in consideration in using the matrix as it is. I think that we, I think that we are starting to get some feedback from community members about, certain officers and things that they may have. We get people sending us stuff all the time. I think Ms. Biggerstaff was always telling us, be fair to the officer, be fair to the citizen. And I think that's kind of where the committee is on that, because I know that there was a lot of discussion back and forth about this particular point about how do we do it without it looking subjective. Also, in terms of due process, we also may have to vet some of these things that come. So anybody can accuse anybody of anything. I think everybody on this commission knows that you can be accused of a lot of things that are not true. And so I think that's where the committee was we know that that's in the charter. We know that we need to listen to the community because we represent the community, but we want to do it in a way that's going to be fair. I mean, the biggest nightmare would be that we don't vet something properly and then we use it to do additional discipline and we did not vet it properly, and that would be horrible. So I just think that's where the committee is. I think that your concerns have been expressed and are shared, because I know that we want to. Well, our job is to fulfill the charter, but that's just where they are on that.
The other thing too is that within the disciplinary matrix, there's a lot of there's ranges of discipline that can be given on different charges, and so I think that is also where we would use that, the impact to the community, right? So should something be 15 days or 5 days, right? Or should something be 2 months, or should something be a demotion versus a firing, or right? There's a lot of these charges have just a real range that we get to apply, and I think that's another place that we can really look at, what is the impact to the community on this, and so that's another place where that happens.
Alrighty. Are there any other questions about this?
I would just ask to other members of the Rules Committee and also Jason and the co-chairs, was there anything that I could have explained better that you thought wasn't covered?
Okay. And if anybody has any other concerns, they can always reach out to Chandra, Jason, Pete, myself, John, to just talk about it and go over it. Yeah, okay. So we're going to move for the vote. Co-Chair Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez. And I vote yes. Yep. So that passes. Thank you, Pete.
Can I make a quick note on this?
Sure.
So the next step for this is that it's going to be sent to the Department of Justice and the monitoring team. Because this does impact an area of the consent decree, which is officer discipline, then as per the consent decree, as a member of the parties, then this has to be reviewed by them. So since it has now passed tonight, it will be sent to the DOJ and monitoring team for comment.
Thank you for that update, Commissioner Benito. We're going to move on to the Police Accountability Committee. This report is going to be given by Commissioner Chandra Benito, Chair Pro Tem.
Yes, I'll keep this short since I know that I just talked a lot. A couple things that is going on in the Accountability Committee. One is that we are looking at a new draft of the disciplinary matrix and the corrective action guidance. So the division sent in January some updates, and the full commission, the previous commission, had a very extensive work group that looked at the corrective action guidance and the disciplinary matrix and put together some very substantive recommendations. Some of those recommendations are included in the updated draft that was sent to us. But many aren't. So we are now going back to the original recommendations that the CPC made, and I believe it was 2020, to see if there's additional changes that we want to be made to bring it closer to what all the work that was done by the previous commission. That had been sent back from, was kind of sent from the policy committee to the accountability committee meeting, to the accountability committee. But now we are sending it back to the policy committee. So that will be a new draft of that should be done in the next couple months. Commissioner Early is working with the CPC staff to go through and make changes to the draft that was given to us by CDP, and then we will be reviewing it in either the next policy committee meeting or the one after that. And the good thing about that is that both Commissioner Garrett-Ferguson and myself are on the policy committee also, and we'll also work with Commissioner Chur to make sure that he has the opportunity to review it and give feedback. So that's the benefit, is that both committees are represented essentially in that work. There was also a draft of the manual of rules that was completed by Commissioner Wong, which kind of goes along with those two. That is now being reviewed by Martin, and then will be, once it is reviewed and final kind of comments are made from that side, that will also be given to the policy committee. So we're kind of rerouting accountability policies back to the policy committee so that then the accountability committee can focus on investigations and discipline. So then the next thing is, so one of the work groups, our Brady Giglio work group, so we do, when talking about the outstanding record request, a big chunk of the outstanding record request is connected to the Brady Giglio work group. So just for anybody who might not be aware of what this work group is doing, so as per the charter, it tasked the commission with having a public Brady Giglio list, and that is officers who have been found to be impeachable or to have had a discipline or issues or charges that would make it so that they would not be a reliable witness, and so therefore that needs to be disclosed to defense attorneys and people who they are in charge, they are involved in the cases of. And so the work group on that has now created a kind of draft rubric through which how to determine using divisional notice, or not divisional notice, sorry, disposition letters, which is the kind of summary letter of police discipline that is being handed out, to use that information and any other additional information that might be available to determine whether immediately to move it to the Brady Giglio list or to say that this needs further review, or whether to say we don't think this rises to that level. So we are now, that work group is now in the, has reached the level where they want to test that rubric. And so in July, I will be working with the members of that work group to set up a meeting and to set up kind of a list of test cases for us to review, to use, to all go through this rubric, see how it works, see if any changes need to be made. And then that, once that has been done and any additional changes have been made at that point, I think we would probably be ready to send it to the accountability committee. So that is where that work group is. One thing is that in kind of some of the discussions from the work group about what does this list look like? Is it just a list on our website with just the officers and no other context? No, I think that the members of the work group have said what they want it to look like. I mean, obviously this is up to us, but what they want it to look like is the officers are listed and then the full case files are available so that they can actually look through the the actual case information of why that officer is being placed on the Brady Giglio list. And so that then that could be used if, defense attorneys or people who are being charged need to say this is why this officer, testimony shouldn't be used or is incredible. So one of the challenges with that is, as Dr. Adams has shared and Executive Director Jason Goodrick has shared, is that the full disciplinary files are the things, the record that are being held up the most, and there does not seem to be a clear resolution to that issue. And so I think that in terms of, and I think Commissioner Wong has shared this repeatedly, that really significantly holds up the work of the Brady Giglio work group and also the work of actually getting this list up on the website. And so I think that it's really critical that we continue to put pressure on that and to figure out that without full case files, what does that need to look like, and how do we make sure that we can get those in a timely manner. So that's the information on the Brady Giglio work group. The last item on the committee report is that we have, as a committee, decided to send our first case to evidentiary hearing, and so that is OPS case 2022-0116, which is the case of that was brought to us by Antoine Tobert. And so we are getting ready to get a hearing scheduled. As per the rules, as you might have seen, we're supposed to get a hearing on the calendar 7 days after the accountability committee decides to move a case to an evidentiary hearing. But that is not happening right now because the evidentiary manual needs to be reviewed by the Department of Justice. So we can't have a hearing if these rules and processes haven't been okayed by the Department of Justice yet. So we are in talks with, to figure out an expected timeline. We don't want to schedule a hearing and then have to cancel it or postpone. So I think that after tonight's meeting, we should be able to get more information from the Department of Justice of how long they'll need to review it, and then we can get that hearing scheduled from there. And then moving forward, the Accountability Committee will continue to provide feedback along with the Policy Committee on all of the accountability and disciplinary rules that are being, and policies that are being drafted. And then we are also going to be looking at recent cases where discipline was brought down and deciding whether to move those cases to evidentiary hearings or also whether to request full case files. So one thing that might be coming out of this committee is we might end up with a backlog of evidentiary hearings that we need to hold. And hopefully that might be a bigger lift at the beginning, but as we make the changes to the disciplinary matrix, to the and to the what's the not the hearing manual, the manual of the, not the manual of rules, but the third document we're looking at. It's completely blanking the, anyway, but once we get those improved, then, we're hoping that there will then be less cases that come to us. I think the other thing too is hopefully once CPRB starts using its charter authority to say to the public safety director and to the chief that no, we recommended this discipline and you need to follow it, then there will be less cases that come to us. But right now, a lot of the cases that are going to come to us are cases where the public safety director and the chief did not actually follow the discipline that was recommended by CPRB. So all of that is just kind of to warn us that we might end up with a backlog of evidentiary hearings, and we'll need to be prepared for that, and we'll keep moving forward on that. But we're hoping that through CPRB enacting its charter authority and us making some changes, that in the future that will be reduced.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Budget and Grants Committee report given by Commissioner Pete Van Leer.
So, thank you, Co-Chair. Actually, Commissioner Kennedy and I have been sort of trading off that role of chair. So, I would like to suggest that for this section, we start, Commissioner Kennedy, with the grants management piece, and then we'll go into some of the budget work, and hopefully Director Goodrick can be part of that and explain a lot of that.
Good evening, everyone. The Budget and Grants Committee has reviewed an application from UBF to manage our grants. We reviewed the application during a recent meeting, and we also conducted an interview with UBF to get some more information about their application. We feel very confident that UBF would be a great partner in managing our grants for this upcoming cycle. As everyone knows, we've learned many lessons learned regarding the grants process, and UBF not only has a lot of experience managing grants, but then also really empowering and working with grantees to help them in not only managing the grant, but just doing the work moving forward. So that's definitely something that we want to support as well. So do you want me to make the motion to pass it? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to pass our to approve UBF's response to our RFP to hire them to manage our grants for this upcoming cycle and to move forward with the contract.
I'll second.
Okay.
Did you? Oh, sorry.
Okay, any discussion or debate about this? I agree, guys, this needs to happen. Let's call for the vote. Co-Chair Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez? And I vote yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I want to go in front of council, but Mark told me don't do it.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next next agenda item.
Right, sorry. So yeah, the next items are about the mid-year budget adjustments. And so in that list, we added NACOL. There were several of us who were interested in going to NACOL this year. Supplemental staff and 2 RFPs, request for proposal, and bias-free consultant and the community engagement assessment. So if it's okay, Director Goodrick, if you could just fill everybody in on what those are. I would, yeah.
So as I mentioned in the executive director's report, we have community engagement coordinator position vacant. The good news is we had over 100 applicants. So one way we want to try to amplify our ability to get out there, talk to the community, is not only hire the 1 full-time position, which we're approved for, but to use some of our vacancy funding for the last 6 months to bring on at least 2 additional community engagement coordinators in a part-time capacity, so that we can get out there and get to as many community events as possible and bring ourselves closer to the community engagement goals in the consent decree and the charter a little bit faster. So those positions, if they're approved by the city, once you approve them, will run through the end of the year to be able to amplify that. We have the one position will stay permanent once we hire, but the other two will be to amplify and get ourselves out there at community meetings. We're stretched a little bit thin right now. And there's a lot of good interactivity that we're missing because we just don't have the staff or the commission capacity right now to be at as many meetings as we could be. So that's one of them. The other way we're looking at moving forward faster towards the goals of the framework, which you all approved. Part of that this year was a comprehensive reevaluation of all of the components of bias-free policing. So from hiring, testing, all the way through to the recruitment pieces of it, right? Through the bias-free policy and then the bias-free training. That's quite a workload. Had we started it when we had discussed it originally in our framework, which was earlier this year, we might have been okay just using ourselves and looking for community members to supplement us in a work group. But because we have so much, we've been really responsive right now with the amount of policy work we're doing, the GPOs. To be able to be proactive, we're going to have to amplify ourselves here too. So the idea is to use some of our outside professional services money and other operational funds that we won't be expending, move it into a pile, and put an RFQ out for people who are experts in the field of bias-free policing to come in, work with, this is being run through the training committee, I believe, so it'll be run through the training committee and do a comprehensive analysis of the bias-free stuff and work with the community to get more community voice on it. So another way we amplify. And then also the community engagement assessment piece. So what that is in the consent decree, there's a paragraph that states that the commission will do an assessment of how the Division of Police engages with the community and how effective they are in their engagement. And that includes CPOP. Again, we're not going to be able to do that with the workload we currently have on unless we supplement some resources to do it. So this would also be another RFQ to draw from operational funding that we have available to ask for some assistance to get out there, go to some of these community engagement events that the division is doing, help us analyze them, and this would be was going to be run through the outreach committee. Hopefully we'll get that committee up and going again because it's the perfect place to do this. Also part of that will be to get back involved in the CPOP world, which I think the whole entire consent decree needs a lot of help with CPOP, so this will give us one way to jump into that conversation, lead that conversation, be able to be reactive to it a little bit faster, having people out there to help us that we hired to do that. So those are the mid-year budget adjustments. In addition, as part of that package, we have enough money to send people to NACOL. We had 11 requests, including staff, which will put us about $30,000, which is approximately what we spent last year. But because it's that much money, it needs to be voted on. You could probably do that as a separate motion so it doesn't get entangled in this other stuff. If people aren't down for that, they could still vote for the NACOL thing separately. So the NACOL would be 11 people, 2 staff, 9 commissioners, and the cost of that is roughly in the $2,500 per person range, which brings us around $30,000, which is a good deal of our training and travel money, but not all of it. So we're within budget if we do this request. That's it.
One question?
I have 2 questions. One is why, I'll do them one at a time. Oh, sorry. Why did you decide to do 2 part-time positions instead of an additional full-time position?
We can't get approved for a full-time position because that would mean that the money has to be reappropriated next year. So if we were to ask for a full-time position, we've already tried that. And so, we would have to go through that whole approval process, the politics of it, and all the things that go along with it. Right now, we are allocated money and personnel. We can't move that money anywhere else. We can't hire new full-time positions, but we can't get creative with it, right, and try to draw as much as that money with the remaining. So these would be temporary positions. And I think, with the intent to move closer to consent decree compliance, it would be really hard to say no to us right now to use this money that's already appropriated to do that, right? If everybody is saying they want consent decree compliance, they want us to get closer to consent decree compliance, the monitor should support this, and the administration and council should too, because that's exactly what they've been asking to do, is get consent decree compliant. This is for us to get our paragraphs consent decree compliant faster. If you remember, when you guys were sat in '23, the previous interim monitor, Aisha Bell Hardaway, said, "You're not going to ride on the backs of the old commission," and she set everything back to operational, out of compliance until you get compliant again through this commission, right? So that was the stance at the time, and we are still out of compliance with a lot of those things, not because we haven't been doing work, because the work is so comprehensive that it will take a long time unless we supplement that as quick as possible.
You answered my second question, thank you. So is the temporary position, is it until the end of the year?
Technically, yes, unless we can find a way to appropriate that money a little bit longer than the end of the year, we'll see what we can do. But they would be temporary positions.
Awesome, thank you.
And then I have two questions as well. Do we have job descriptions for the temporary positions?
They're the same as the full-time community engagement coordinator. They would just say an hours cap, so not more than 20 hours a week. But they would be very similar. They would be going out to meetings, representing the commission. So it's the exact same.
Even for the bias-free consultant?
No, those are RFQs. Those are going to go out, and so for that, Charles Donaldson's committee will receive the proposals. We're going to post it. So that could be a whole firm. You can hire an entire firm to do that work, to supplement you. So, people in that space, the DEI space, the equity space, whatever, we will ask people to submit proposals for how they can help us around that. And that'll be run through the training committee. The training committee will evaluate those proposals and bring it back to get approval.
Is that through the same personnel budget?
No, that comes out of operating budget. So we can't, one thing that you can't do is move personnel budget money to operations or operations money to personnel. That is one of the cardinal rules of city finance. So we can only use personnel money for things like this, the part-time staff.
Okay. And do we know everybody, has it been released, who's all going to NACO?
Do you want the list of who? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I can go down that. So it would be, I'll just use the last names here. Adams, Benito, Chura, Early, Garrett Ferguson, Rodriguez, Van Leer, Wong, Zayed, and then Walker and Goodrick from staff. Yeah, we're gonna move you through if you're a maybe. That way, but we'll hold your registration back, but that way it's already voted to, that we won't have to re-vote. So if you were to withdraw, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
But it's better to have you on the list than,
Okay.
that way there's no contention.
Okay, so I know we're doing this mid-budget adjustment. So once we put these motions, is it like solidified and this is the permanent budget? Thank you. So I guess I'm just having questions. Are these gonna go for motions and then they're gonna be permanent, like our permanent budget from this point forward? Is that what we're looking for?
Through the chair, it would be our budget for this year. We would authorize the allocation of that funds for those purposes.
Okay, and then I have one more question. I may not be aware, but does the budget have the cost allocated for the firm for just what we were supposed to do for the ED position? Is that in the budget as well? Or since we're doing adjustments through the mid-year?
That was already voted on, so yes. So that part is another RFQ, so yes, if that's the route you go, and that committee hasn't met, so I don't know what the plan is yet.
Okay,
But we could still find a way to make that work.
okay.
Sir, I have one more question kind of along their lines. Is the supplemental staff, is it just half the salary that because if it's only for a year, I'm wondering, would it make more sense to do it like, because I know we haven't engaged the youth as much, to do like a college student internship and just give a stipend? Because I'm trying to conceptualize, it's already July, and if this isn't out until August, it's like 4 months. Maybe going into February, I guess, if we go to our fiscal year, but I'm just trying to understand like what is even that compensation, and what would be the incentive for somebody if it wasn't like a college student, I guess.
It's okay, I can make it work. So, the compensation, hasn't been set because, we would have to look at that with HR, what their average part-time pay is without
Okay.
benefits, right? It's not gonna be minimum wage, but it'll be, it'll be close to what a full-timer makes, but a little bit less, I could tell you that. So if the position pays like 23, this will probably be 18 to 20 range for part-time, but it's non-benefited, and so it would be people who would like to make some extra money. Most likely, it'll either be someone who already has a job and wants to supplement their income, or to your point, somebody who just is in school and needs some extra money. So it would be more akin to, we post a calendar of all the possible meetings that can be attended, right? And then they would sign up for the ones they want to go to if they can work them and they're free and available. So we would have that running through the end of the year, and people would just sign up to work 2 or 3 nights a week for 2 to 3 hours to be at these meetings. So it would
Could we
be,
decide to put that type of stipulation? Like it should be a student of some sort, or do we have to go by what HR for the city?
no, what we're going to do is we're going to use hopefully this applicant pool we already have. So we had over 100 people want this job full-time, right?
Okay.
So out of the 12 we interview, one of the questions we will ask is, if you're not offered the full-time position, would you be willing to work part-time, if you're interested? And if they said yes, then once the city approves, we would already have done the interviews, we won't have to slow down time, we can just then bring them on board. If someone else is interested, I'm sure we could figure out a way to do that. But I think out of the 100 candidates, there are so many good ones in there, it was hard to narrow it down to just 12. So we have plenty to choose from that are interested in this type of work and helping the commission right now. So we should be able to move it forward really quickly. But the next step after you guys allow it, and technically, I didn't have to come to ask, I could have just operationalized this, but I wanted it to be, a transparent discussion. I want everyone to be on the same page. We could have just done this without a conversation, but this is the best way to go about it, is for everyone to be on board with making these adjustments towards our goals together. So that's where we're at with it. The city would have to approve it still, though. But like I said, I think if the goal is to get out of the consent decree, there's no reason not to. The money's already there. We're not asking for additional money. This is money that will go back to the general fund if it's not utilized.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to pass the 3 items of supplemental staff and the 2 RFPs as described by Director Goodrick.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We conducted a lot of discussion just now. You guys have any further questions? All right, is everyone okay with calling the vote? All right. Co-Chair Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez? I vote yes.
Okay,
All
I have
right.
one more thing that I was remiss in not mentioning before. Celeste Terry from United Black Fund is here, and I want to ask if she'd like to say a few words as we move forward with
We
United
also
Black
need
Fund.
the NACO motion.
Oh, yeah, sorry, thanks.
Well, I have a big smile on my face.
You need to come to the mic so the public can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I have a big smile on my face. I want to thank the commissioners, and on behalf of our CEO, Cisco Lipscomb, we are excited and delighted to be working with the commission, and we're going to do a great job for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Terry. So yeah, with that, we're going to go back to the NACOL. I make a motion that we approve the expenditure to send 2 staff and 9 commissioners to the NACOL conference this year.
Is it 11 commissioners?
2 staff and 9
Oh, it's
commissioners.
11 people. Okay, okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Let's call for the vote. Co-Chair Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Chura,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Aye.
Commissioner Early,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Aye.
I vote yes. All right, that passes. Do you have anything else? All right, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is a report from our Performance and Evaluation Committee given by the Chair, Adriana Rodriguez.
Thank you so much. So basically, we had our last meeting, and during this time, we have created a policy to help guide our work. That information will be sent to the committee members, and our next meeting will be July 8th. The goal of the policy is to provide a framework so that we're all on the same page on how to move forward, what information that we should collect, and basically how we should navigate.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Policy Committee, the Police Policy Committee, and that report is going to be given by the Chair of that committee, Commissioner Pete Van Leer.
Okay, thank you, Co-Chair. So we're just going to go down the list and do separate motions for each of these, and so we can have discussion, and then there'll be a short update at the end. So I'm going to make a motion that we pass the warrant check requirements GPO motion.
Is there a second?
Okay, so I will explain what's happened with this. This is a GPO that, according to the division, has been revised pretty thoroughly, and the purpose is to establish requirements to conduct warrant checks within the Division of Police. So our main focus, really, I think a lot of it looked pretty good. One change we made that I want to highlight, and if I'm missing anything, others can correct me. In Section 2B1, we added language around members making a reasonable effort to check an individual's physical characteristics like height, weight, eye color, hair color, and other identifiers, including tattoos or scars, to ensure the individual's description matches the warrant or the want. And the idea here is that, too often people have the same name and what have you, and they're stopped. And this is a requirement that the officers actually do to double check as much as they can based on what the person looks like, so you don't have somebody who's weighs 300 pounds being mistaken for somebody who weighs 150 pounds or something, right? So just the real obvious things that you should be able to tell if in fact you have a photograph and other information that will help you identify that person. So that, I believe, if other members of the committee want anything to add about that GPO, want to add anything, that would be great, but I think that was one of our main changes.
Can I ask questions?
Yes.
Okay. Again, sorry, I'm just coming back off of leave, so I do have a couple. So for general guidelines 1A, I see that it says if the officers have probable cause to arrest an individual on fresh charges, they should not check for individual warrants. Is there somewhere in here then that states when they should check? Because I was reading through and I can't tell then what would, if it's not probable cause, which is constitutionally right, what is the standard that they have to check for individual warrants?
I don't know the whole process, but Director Goodrick, perhaps you can enlighten us. But I would think that during the process of booking the arrest.
Read B.
I was going to just say, if you look at 1B, I think it clarifies. So if they arrest them or they lawfully detain them for the probable cause for A, then it says that they shall be checked for warrants through the various systems. So I think once they actually make the decision to detain them or arrest them, then it looks like the next step would be that they could check for warrants.
But it doesn't cite the constitutional
It's in
standard.
2B.
But once they're,
The answer to your question is in 2B.
it's mentioned a couple of times, but I think once they have been going through the process, there's opportunity to check for warrants. There's no reason not to check for warrants at that time.
So I guess I'm trying to explain it the right way. So this shows that once they are seized, and which is prevented from leaving, then you can check for warrants. It says first that probable cause cannot be the reason. So what is the reason for stopping them and seizing them in order to check for the warrant? Because
Prob-
I'm not understanding that.
Members who, here, 1A says members who have probable cause to arrest an individual on fresh charges. So they see something's happening, that is their,
Yes,
That
but it
is
says
what
they
they do.
shall not check the individual for warrant.
Because at that
Right.
point, they don't need to because they're already
have-
arresting him. So they're saying
Right.
that basically, if, let's say you saw someone stab another person, then they're arresting them for that. You don't need to check for if they have a warrant for something else because you're already arresting them for fresh charges. Do you hear what I'm saying? So you would be arresting them for the thing that you saw that they're being arrested for right now. So I think that I asked a very similar question when we went over this in committee, and I asked, well, when are people running this? And it seems like 90% of the time it's when it's vehicle. So when you're being pulled over and they give your license and then they run your information, that's when a lot of this is being applied.
So in that scenario, and then going back to 2B, that you guys said that they would check once they're seized. If I see someone stabbing someone and I'm going to arrest them, under 2, based on that, at 2B, I've seized them so I can run the warrant. So that's where I'm confused about the probable cause, because that's the constitutional standard. So I'm not seeing, they are, but there's nothing to counter that probable cause.
What do you mean by counter?
Because you're saying that when they have probable cause, they cannot check the individual for warrants.
I think what it's saying is you should arrest somebody based on the thing that you're seeing, not based on other warrants. So I think that what it's trying to get away from is arresting somebody for one thing and then running, for kind of basically shopping for charges. Is I think that what I'm imagining. I mean, I can't. Shopping for outstanding warrants in order to then charge them with something else. So I think that, I'm not.
No, because
CDP
there's no
would be able to
definition
better
for probable
answer
cause.
that.
And I'm just thinking Fourth Amendment around, because that is a constitutional standard, there's nothing else.
You mean the
that
probable
hits on it.
causes?
Yes.
Yes. So, but what this is saying is that if I have probable cause to arrest Kate, this is saying I'm not going to then run her for other warrants. I'm just going to arrest her based on what I saw, but based on the probable cause. Now this.
But then when you go to 2B, it says that you would check them because now you've seized them.
So
but it's
No, it's
2B,
different.
to be clear, 2B says they shall request DCS check, but if the check does not prolong the seizure. So the importance here too is also not holding someone just to check
Right.
the warrants. They might have something and then you would otherwise let them go. You can't just hold them to check the warrants.
I get it.
So,
if we're doing if an officer is doing an investigatory stop, and there's not, or not even, if they're doing an investigatory stop, you can't prolong the investigatory stop in order to then check for warrants. So you have to do the investigatory stop in enough time to clear up whatever, if there's a robbery in the area and Kate matches the description of what I heard about in the robbery, I can stop Kate for an investigatory stop to say, hey, what are you doing right now? Why are you here? And they're like, oh, I'm on my way to an appointment. I just clocked off work. You can see that I just clocked off work. I can't then say, I'm going to hold you longer, and then I'm going to go and run to see if you have any warrants. At that point, I've confirmed the information that I need to confirm in the investigatory stop. Then at that point, constitutionally, I can't keep her longer. So I think it's saying that then you're not just keeping someone longer on other stops in order to run warrant checks.
But would it have been probable cause to stop her in the beginning anyway? Because I
That
would
would
think
depend
that
on-
you can stop, but you can't seize them.
That's so.
Stopping is not the same as seizing. Seizing is a person saying they don't have the right to leave. They feel that they can't
Well, that's not an investigatory. That's a consensual encounter? Is somebody correct?
But over here, that's what I'm saying. So over here, under 2B, it's using the term seizure. So I feel like these
Right,
are
seizure. But
contrary.
isn't a seizure also an investigatory stop? If you're stopping someone, then you have to have probable cause in order to do an investigatory stop. Correct? Am I right on that?
But then you can't
You can't
check
extend.
for warrants.
You can't extend what would be a reasonable amount of time for that investigatory stop in order to check for warrants.
Yes, but what if they say that, like from an officer, I'm trying to think of, you're saying you can't extend. What is the discretion of extending the time?
So, like, I mean, that's getting into, I think, way beyond what this GPO is getting into. I think we would need to look at the GPO for investigatory stops if you want to look at, like, what, how much is a reasonable amount of time. But, so, your question is, what would be a reasonable amount of time for an investigatory stop in order to say that if you go beyond that, you're not supposed to go beyond that in order to do this, that we would have to refer back to the investigatory stops GPO.
Which makes sense. I'm just I'm worried about because it says probable cause, you can't do it, and then every part of the language after that is talking about seizing, which means a person can't.
Right. But this is, okay, so I think we're talking about a bunch of different things in the arrest process. So this GPO is talking about specifically warrant checks, right?
Yes.
And we're talking about probable cause, we're talking about seizure. The purpose of this GPO is to confine the time and confine the situations in which a search can be started for an existing or outstanding warrant, right? So what this GPO is saying is that if I'm in, as the example you were giving, if I'm in, or if I get pulled over, right, that I can't, that the officer during that time, right, can't, right, and now I haven't committed a crime yet, I'm just getting pulled over or something, right, or I have committed a crime, right, that the officer during that time can't say, hold up, let's pause, and let me go see if you have an outstanding warrant. That,
That's what I'm saying. Is that clear?
No, the pulling over thing is not the best example because part of the standard pulling over process includes running a warrant check and I think the reason why it does is that they have to run your license as part of pulling someone over. So then that amount of time to run a warrant check takes the same, basically it's all happening at the same time, so it's not extending the seizure. So that is why then that's, I think with that by law would be acceptable practice for during a pullover situation. It's not extending the seizure because they already have to run your license.
But this doesn't say time. So at the beginning it says, it is the policy of the Cleveland Division of Police to conduct warrant checks on individuals lawfully seized by officers. So this GPO
but seizing, when you're pulled over, you're essentially being seized temporarily.
Are you?
Yeah.
You can't leave until they do
can't leave.
until they run your license and make sure.
it's
that
not a
everything is-
consensual stop.
The seizure is a
I think like
But you have to have a probable cause to.
it could be your tags are expired.
I
that's
get that,
probable.
but that's what I'm saying. This one
That's the reason
is.
to pull you over.
But the way this GPO is written, it's contradicting itself then, because then you do have to have probable cause to stop somebody.
So,
correct?
but you're talking about if they have probable cause to arrest you, you don't have probable cause to arrest someone for their tags being expired. You have probable cause to seize them. By seizing, meaning you're in your car by the side of the road while they run your information. So
What is the difference between arrest and
1A,
seizing?
well, a seizing is okay.
There's a consensual, so in the search and seizure GPOs, there's a consensual encounter, right?
Okay.
You can leave, right? They're not running your warrant checks during a consensual encounter, right?
Okay.
Then you go to a field investigation, right, an investigatory stop. That's where they say, we're investigating you for X, Y, and Z. You cannot leave, right? So during
that, you over for something like
during that time, they can run your warrant check, right? So while they're building up their case to either release you, right, or arrest you during that time, that's an investigatory stop. It is a seizure, right? You're not free to go. So there's two parts that are being confused here. If they have probable cause, you're already arrested. What they're saying is you don't need to warrant check somebody you're arresting, because just go ahead and book them. They'll find the warrants later in the process of booking, so you don't have to waste time running a warrant check. Just process the arrest. So that's what 1B or 1A covers. Okay. If you already have enough, so you already seized someone, you found your probable cause, right? You're choosing to make an arrest, you don't need to run a warrant check. That's all they're saying here. So in that process, There's no need, you're already gonna arrest and book, so they're gonna be in jail. While they're in jail, they'll find out if they have other warrants and figure out how to handle those.
So you would see someone that you're not going to arrest, and during the siege process is when you would run the warrant?
Yeah, so that's where on section 2, if you're investigating a crime, while you're doing that, if you don't have enough to arrest yet, you can do the warrant check. They're telling you do the warrant check, right? So if you're on the premises of a building that was just broken into and you fit the description, right? They don't want to arrest you yet. They're going to say you can't leave, right? They're going to detain you to investigate, and during that time they will run your warrants. That's a seizure. And they will, while they're building up the case before they make an arrest, they will run your warrants, right? But if they already have that case, they're not gonna run your warrants. So if I pull up and I see you coming out of that building right out the window, right? That's probable cause. I don't need to run your warrants. I just need to arrest and book you. So those are the two scenarios here that are a little bit different, right?
And-
While you're doing an investigation, you can run a warrant check while you're doing.
As long as it doesn't unnecessarily prolong
Right.
the
You
seizure.
can't hold somebody in that second sentence, it's just saying, as a reason to hold someone, you can't say, well, I'm waiting for your warrant check to come back, right?
Okay.
Because then I could say, well, sit down on this curb, the computers are down, I'm gonna have you stay here for 2 hours while we wait to hear if you have a warrant, that's unreasonable.
And this wouldn't be the GPO that we put that time in?
No, and you won't ever see a time in GPOs because the courts determine what's reasonable and it's based on the stop itself. So time changes based on circumstances. So there is no set time for a traffic stop. There's no set time for an investigation. It takes as long as it takes to do the business. If you delay and extend it for unreasonable, unnecessary reasons, then the courts will say that's too long. But typically, they never say a time. They judge it on a case-by-case scenario.
So
There
it's
is
still
no set time.
subjective, right? So that means that an officer could use that same excuse that you're sitting on the curb and our computers are down, because there's
Not to
nothing
hold you
definitive.
for a warrant check. They can't, that's what this is saying. They can't use that as an excuse to hold you for a warrant check.
Well, if it doesn't,
They would have to have another reason to keep you there that's not the warrant check, right? So if they're investigating something else, they can tell you to stay there, like a domestic violence, right? They can tell you don't leave until they're talk to everybody, figure out what's going on, right? Those types of scenarios. But what they can't do is tell you don't leave because I don't have anything else to investigate, but I'm just gonna see if you have a warrant. That's not gonna happen.
I agree, but I'm saying, without the time frame, how do you hold them accountable to that?
Okay, so the way that I read the GPO, that 2B, it says that they cannot, whatever you're being investigated for, whatever they're looking into, they cannot extend the time that they detain you or seize you just to do the warrant. Whatever the original reason you were pulled over for or you were being spoken to about, the warrant cannot add additional time. So say, for example, if I see you coming out of some building or a vicinity where there was a robbery or something, once that's the original reason that I'm pulling you over. Once I've determined that you're not a part of that, I can't say, I'm going to hold you a little bit longer so I can do a warrant check for you. Once that original reason that I pulled you over and I've confirmed that, I have to let you go. So it's trying to prevent things like, my understanding is, say you have like a group of young kids that are loitering, right? Or they're being really loud. So you address them because they're loitering or they're really loud. Once you settle that, and you haven't done a warrant check or anything, you cannot then say, well, let me check everybody's stuff before I let you
And
go.
maybe it's because I haven't seen a search and seizure, because I guess what I'm saying is, you can't seize children just because they're being loud. That's not a crime.
So I think that, and your question was, how do we know how much time it is? That's, again, settled by case law and other GPOs. So what this is we know that CDP as a function runs warrant checks. This GPO is telling them how they run warrant checks. So other issues of, how long are the officers supposed to keep people on a traffic stop or on other investigatory stops, that's not going to be addressed by this.
Okay.
And neither
So-
is the probable cause thing.
think we
Yeah,
need to move on.
we're spending a lot of time on this. And remember, that is why these things are sent out ahead of time, so we can review them ahead of time and contact the committee to discuss these things ahead of time so we can gain a clear understanding before the meeting. So we're going to call the vote for this motion. Okay. Co-Chair Adams. Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Abstain.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez. And I vote yes. Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda for Policy Committee, from Policy Committee is SWAT GPO. I make a motion that we pass this GPO, approve this GPO.
I'll second.
So this is pretty straightforward. We didn't make any changes from the CPC. You can see if you look at the GPO that was sent out, the changes are italicized from the division, and it's really, setting guidelines for the use of the unit, the SWAT unit, and it's for managing critical incidents. So we looked through this, we had discussion. You can see there's some italics in there and some, those are the changes that they made, and that's pretty much it.
Can I add a little context?
Yeah.
So part of why I think this GPO was done was, if you remember in the Uvalde school shooting, there was a lot of chaos around who was in charge of the scene, and different tactical units came. And so a lot of what this is clarifying is basically when different units should be used, who's in charge if there are multiple units there, and that kind of thing.
I do have a question, and I'm sorry because I was on leave, so I'm.
Well, first, let's see if we can have was there a second for the motion?
Otherwise, a second.
It was.
Okay.
So my biggest concern was 1.7 or 1A7, the crowd control where there's potential of civil disturbance, riots, unlawful obstructions, or assemblages. Was there any conversation to make that a little bit more clear when we talk about riots, unlawful obstructions, and assemblage? Because constitutional people have a right to assembly. So that seems to me that needs to be a little bit shuffled out, especially when we are seeing an uptick in youth. And I know some of it's been youth causing harm and showing up in groups of people, but I wouldn't want groups of youth to then be arrested or be seen as a civil disturbance because of what the trend that we're seeing, and because this isn't clearly defined as a riot or unlawful obstructions or assemblage.
So, to Chair, I will say that there may be other contexts, but that was not changed, and I believe this GPO was passed in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, and went through the DOJ process, or no? Do you remember?
To the chairs, yes. This GPO, the only thing they change in this, understanding, the community's concerned about militarization and SWAT in general. Now is not the time to look at that whole thing. All they want to do is control their SWAT unit when it's deployed. So the problem is when SWAT units typically come out, they act like superstars on the scene, and they do what they want to do without plugging into the system to work the problem collectively, right? They've been notorious for that. So this is putting control, what's called command and control, on the SWAT unit through the incident command system, right?
So is
To
there
your
a way
point-
to change 7?
To your point, 7 is already more detailed, and there's a whole GPO on crowd control, right? That's where it'll talk about what you can and cannot do. They're just listing the reasons you might consider SWAT here. This doesn't say that SWAT will be deployed to those. It says the BSS commander or their designee shall approve the use of SWAT, and that they can be, any of these following situations. They're just giving examples of situations. It doesn't mean the special weapons and tactics units would be called out for every assembly there is, and they're typically not. You don't typically see them. They have their own units that are more crowd control focused. This would be if something came to a extreme, where they've lost control, where, they're talking about National Guard and special units to bring back control to certain areas and prevent crime from occurring.
Is there any way that they can cite the other GPO, the crowd control GPO? Because I'm thinking like if in real time, an officer, if they're just reading this around SWAT,
Well, there's a
Would they know
GPO for almost every one of these, so that is up to them how they cite and cross-cite, because we've had this conversation before and it can get really messy, because like every other sentence you have to stop and cite a different GPO. So it makes it hard to read because it runs through all these different cross-references. Their stance has long been, you should know, where your GPOs are and what to look at. It is a point where we can decide holistically with them, how do you index these, how do you make it appropriate in these, on a larger picture, so.
I just want to point out one thing. It's a grammatical thing, but it's important. So for 7, where it says, e.g. riots, unlawful obstruction, assemblages, etc. The lack of a comma between obstructions and assemblages means that unlawful obstructions or unlawful assemblages. So it's not just violating people's First Amendment rights, where if they assemble and the police don't like it, they can just come in. So if they meant any assembly of citizens, then there would be a comma after the obstructions, and then that unlawful part will not apply to assemblages. I just want to just point that out.
No, that makes sense. I
It's
guess because-
unlawful assemblages, not just any assemblages.
and I think what I was getting at is, I don't see the definition of what is constituted as an unlawful assembly.
That's in the different
That's
GPO.
another GPO.
And that's where the
Okay.
BSS commander, if you're the commander, you're supposed to know that. So if you're appointed in charge of SWAT, that's your job to know when they're supposed to apply to these certain circumstances. That's why this whole paragraph is about them making a determination if that's appropriate to send the SWAT team or not send the SWAT team, so.
All right, thank you for that.
So, yeah, and, Commissioner Chura, to the chair, Commissioner Chura pointed out that I had misremembered when this is an older GPO. So one question I have through the chair to Executive Director Goodrick, is this consent decree GPO, will this go through the DOJ?
To the chair, I don't know the answer to that. This is about this came out of the whole reevaluation of the command and control during the 2020 George Floyd uprising in Cleveland, right? So they had to rewrite all of their crowd control, their assembly training, their GPOs, and this falls under that. So they had to say what falls under the umbrella of that master rewrite to bring better control and command to situations like this, right? Who makes decisions on the scene? That's what this is explaining. It really isn't changing anything other than adding an element of control into that and reporting through. So I don't know if that will qualify because it has to do with lawful assembly. They might, but that's not our decision. That's the consent decree coordinator's decision and the monitor's decision whether this goes before the DOJ or not.
So we wouldn't, seeing how we represent the community and going back to what happened in 2020 with those protests, because a lot of that was considered unlawful, not on the citizens, but on how police handled it, and they have made changes. I don't understand why this would not go before the monitor or the DOJ, because I think there is a really, and I get what everyone is saying, like we have separate GPOs on crowd control, but even just what's happening this summer and how there's so many publications that are really criminalizing youth, I'm just very concerned about when we are using certain terms about, and we keep saying controlling people, like people don't have a right to assemble, and they don't have a right to gather, and they don't have a right to, like they have certain rights. This doesn't even list like them being armed. It literally is just like, oh, a lawful of this, and there's no citation, and that is a really, really big issue coming out of 2020, and then seeing the uptick of how we're militarizing youth now. So I wouldn't even understand why we wouldn't even push for this to go before the DOJ to make sure that people's individual rights. Can we do that?
Sure.
Do we have to?
There's
can we
nothing-
put a motion out, like
we don't need
an
a motion.
amendment? Can we put an amendment?
We
We don't?
No, it's up to, yeah.
And we can, okay.
I mean,
Okay.
the monitor's in the room right now. So.
I mean, could we ask their opinion?
Hi, monitor.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, they're not
So,
speaking, so I'm like,
I
can
mean,
we defer?
They're
and
not.
ask
They're
them
not
the question?
asleep at the wheel. They see every GPO
And we
that
have
comes
meetings
through,
like every
so,
2 weeks
yeah.
as well.
But this SWAT GPO was not part of the core work of the consent decree search and seizure was. The crowd control came out of that because use of force. So anything that touches use of force, this does touch use of force. So there's a greater likelihood than not that they will look at this because it changed the use of force command of that, who
Yeah.
makes the decisions for use of force when it has to do with SWAT, right?
So if we wanted to send this and just make sure they look this over, who sends that email? Is that you?
Yeah, we can send a note saying we passed this and we recommend you look at it, but we don't have.
Yeah, we
control
can't
over
tell
it.
them. They have to. We
Okay,
can just
but can
say we
ask-
want them to,
Could
absolutely.
you please look at this? Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna call for the vote. Co-Chair Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early. Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Abstain.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Aye.
And I vote yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, thank you, Co-Chair. Next on the agenda is travel and training request, GPO. I make a motion that we approve this GPO. Okay. So quick summary of it, and I'll also defer to folks who are involved in training, but we focused a lot on section 2, request for travel and or training, subsection 5. Our language is the training shall maintain and regularly update, the training section rather, shall maintain and regularly update a list of disapproved training courses and providers. This list will be referenced during the vetting process to ensure compliance with division standards. And section 3, member responsibilities, subsection B, members acknowledge that regardless of the training received, they shall adhere to all division policies and training standards. Submission of a training request serves as acknowledgement of this requirement. The standard applies to all trainings regardless of whether they're approved or paid for by the Cleveland Division of Police. So this is to ensure, our goal here is to ensure officers are not getting, and especially not being paid to participate in training that's inappropriate or that goes against policy. And this was sparked in part by the street cop trainings that were happening, and there's a lot of attention paid to that. But to really prevent that the officers getting training that goes against what we want to see in Cleveland and what should be happening in Cleveland.
All right, are there any questions or discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Okay. Co-Chair Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez. I vote yes.
All right. The final item on the agenda for the policy committee. A few months ago, as a commission, we.
There's two more. The Jeep,
Oh, sorry. I'm skipping that one. Yeah, sorry. We'll do the easy one first. Request for a copy of a Bureau of Communications recording and setting guidelines for requesting a copy of a Bureau of Communications Property Control master recording of an emergency telephone call, text message, or dispatch channel recording. And we made no changes to this. I make a motion, sorry, thank you. I make a motion to approve this GPO.
Questions or debate? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Co-Chair Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Yes.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
I don't know if to say aye or yes, no, aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes.
Commissioner, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, now we'll get to the final item, GPO. I make a motion that we pass they approve the revised gunshot detection or shot spotter GPO.
I'll second.
Okay, so if you recall, we passed this at a previous meeting, but we heard concerns from both the division and our executive director about reporting requirements. In section 5, errors, In section 6, data, our previous version required the division to send the CPC, to the CPC's executive director reports of all ShotSpotter errors and weekly, monthly, and quarterly analysis. This would have proved unwieldy for both the division and the CPC, unnecessary, as we are able to request the data when we need it, when we want it, because they are, according to the GPO, as written, they are forwarded internally within the division. So I can go deeper if you want, yes.
I would like to understand deeper. Even if it's not all correspondence, I don't understand why, since they're sharing it anyway internally, why wouldn't they be proactive to share monthly, quarterly? Just also because ShotSpotter in multiple cities, it is very controversial. Most cities, it does not work. We know that there's data around it. And the fact that they're pushing back on us, just sending us the regular report is very concerning. So I don't understand why, maybe it's not all of them, but even if it's just the false ones, even if it's something on a quarterly or monthly basis, but I think to take it out where they are not required and we have to be proactive is an issue for me.
To the chair, this is not only feedback from the division, but from staff. Just the volume of the materials would necessarily be helpful. And our thinking is that when we need it, we can access it and we can do the analysis or use the data as we see fit. But that's all I have. I don't have much more to say than that.
And it can't just be them sending us error reports every couple months. Like because we know ShotSpotter in and of itself is a very controversial technology. There are multiple reports across the country of cities that have used it, and it's not good. So I'm just.
If you have a proposal to make, I would suggest you make a motion versus.
Well, can I make a motion to make an amendment that quarterly we can get even error reports or some type of data from CPD?
Is there a second for the motion? Second. Discussion? Commissioner Benito?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, like in principle of like why not be more proactive. I think part of the challenge is that there is so much data that and so many things that we want to be looking at. Do we have the staff capacity right now? Like, 'cause I think one thing is, do we want to request data that we're not going to use? Like, do we know that do we have the staff capacity to take whatever the file is that they're giving us quarterly to do something with it? Do we have a plan to do something with it? Do we have a work group that's set aside to deal with that? So I think, like, I agree with you and, like, in the idea of, like, let's be proactive, but I also feel like we have so many priorities that I think are probably above, like, evaluating ShotSpotter data right now that I'm not sure that would we even be using it quarterly. And that's just my question, because I don't want to create a burden on staff and also ask for things if we're not going to use them.
I think we can hold each other accountable to that, and I say that only because this is one of the most ineffective, controversial uses of technology, and we know that big data and technology around policing in this country has not been effective. But it is something that our mayor is toting as something to diminish crime. So I think we can hold each other accountable. We can create a work group. I will lead it, but I think we need to make sure we get it.
Create that stuff first, and then we can change the GPO to say that.
Commissioner Kennedy?
So I agree with you on ShotSpotter. I think, and I also agree with Commissioner Benito on, I'm wondering, like, I'm envisioning, right, this file of all of the incidents recorded of ShotSpotter, and I don't know
Just the error, I said. My motion was only for the error.
but we don't know that they can extract, like, we don't know that they can even extract that report, right? So they might extract a report of, like, all the activity of the ShotSpotter, and that's what they're able to do, and that's what they're able to send us. And we don't have, like, we don't know that we have the capacity to interpret whatever they're going to send us. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, this topic did come up in the committee meeting. This instance where we had, I believe, some of the policy people from the police department. I think they were here for that meeting, and this came up. And I think that where we landed, or that committee landed, was that, again, capacity. I mean, when you talk about errors, you're not just saying, ShotSpotter was wrong. That means we're going to be getting false positives, false negatives, missed incidents,
And that's why I say
mislocated incidents.
quarterly. I'm
Right.
not saying every month. I
And
also
w-
think we
and-
can
and-
establish a
but
work
to
group.
the I,
Yeah,
but
that's gonna.
but at the same, yeah. So I'm just saying it came up. Like I said, if you feel that strongly about it, then I would support creating a work group and then maybe figuring out, because we don't even know how much data we're even going to be asking for. We don't
I
even.
think that if we actually, I think if people actually maybe was, and I don't mean this in a mean way, there are so many like articles and podcasts across the country over the 5 years because every city like with major
We're
crimes
not
keep
arguing
hiring
about,
people.
Hold on,
we're
wait,
not
wait,
agreeing
wait.
with you on
I'm
shot
saying-
spot.
Hey, everybody,
I'm saying
everybody.
talk about the
One at a
data.
time.
No, I'm
So
saying like there's
But this
evidence
isn't
out
the
there of how they're
time,
gonna
and this
send
isn't the
it.
place. So like you,
It's just an
I
amendment.
still have my reservations about ShotSpotter. I get what you're saying, but we're not talking about whether we agree with it or not. This is not the place to like, defend it or anything like or review it. This
so
is
the
thing-
reality.
It's just making an
but the-
amendment.
but
Can
the-
we get some data? That's it.
the reality of
we can when we need to request it. Yeah. So I guess we should vote on her amendment.
Commissioner Van Leer. Or you want to call for?
I was just
Sure.
gonna add, I don't see anything here where the community could have access to it. That would be interesting to put this on a map. So anybody that wants to look at it can see where the shots are being fired.
Where's that infrastructure?
Commissioner Kennedy?
It's already done, I mean, that's how they check this.
Yeah, it's already
All they have
there.
to do is put it out there. Instead, they're not giving it to anybody. I mean, I would be curious
Do we-
to see
but-
how many shots are going off in my neighborhood.
100%. But Commissioner, through the chair, for example, we basically, there's a lot of work that can be done as a result of this conversation that we're having right now. One option is to create a work group on specific shot spotter oversight. So there's a ton of discovery that you could do on what type of data shot spotter can export to us for us to look at. What is the capacity of the department to interpret that data before it comes to us? Does the ShotSpotter data, as Commissioner Chura was saying, go into GIS so then we can look at the map? So, but that's we don't have that information, and we need to go get it if we're going to do something about it. So, if we need to
Can we
form
make
a work group,
an amendment to have it?
I don't think
It's not necessary.
I don't think an amendment addresses the problem. I think that an additional work outside of this meeting solves the problem that we're talking about. And so if anything gets proposed, I recommend that something like that get proposed.
Commissioner Chur?
To the chair, I think also, as was stated, not only should we be concerned about this system, but council holds the purse strings for it, and, let's maybe come up with a solution that way. So that's about it.
Is there any other comments? Guess we'll call for the vote.
Okay, this is for the amendment to add that we receive the errors.
So the amendment is to request data.
Request error data quarterly or that they send us automatically quarterly data of just errors.
Co-Chair Adams.
It would.
Excuse me, The question for me is, where would it go in the GPO?
So I could make a suggestion if you want. If we're going to do that, it would be members shall report
Would it be under
errors.
5 or 6?
No, I think it's the second section, data analysts, when available, should be directed to perform daily analysis. And the analyst shall provide weekly, monthly, and annual reports. This is B1-2, or B2, I guess. On a weekly, monthly, and annual reports, and we could add there, then it says reports shall be forwarded via email to the program manager and the Bureau of Compliance commander. So we could, this proposal, as I understand it, which I'm not necessarily saying I'm in favor of, would be to then add a line there that says the commander or the program manager will then forward the quarterly reports to, there's no quarterly reports in there, however. We'd have to add quarterly in the first part and then say quarterly reports will be sent to the executive director.
Where is that part?
That is B Analytics 6B2.
And I specified errors, so not even all, because I understand people's worried about.
So you're
their
talking about
shop
errors,
issues.
okay.
Yes, so
So that would be in
specifically
section
errors.
5 then.
Yes, so that
Sorry.
was, I was saying, it was
I'm sorry.
specifically
So then-
errors quarterly sent.
Then would be,
understand what he was suggesting.
yeah, no, that, I was misunderstanding. So I would say, then we're going to report all errors, and then they'll document them via email. That's section 5 errors B. Document them via email, forwarded the program manager, and copy the Bureau of Compliance commander through their commander's office. So this would create a requirement that the division assemble a quarterly report and send it to the executive director. And we would have to add a sentence in there that that would be section 5 errors, subsection B. I think the place to put that would be to require them then to forward a quarterly report, to create and forward a quarterly report to the executive director. And honestly, I'm not sure that that extra burden makes sense until we know what we're going to do with it.
Right. I mean, to Commissioner Vander's point, like that literally was the discussion that we had when the committee met about this. Like exactly what you're saying, that was a huge part of the discussion when the committee met. And what the officers, like I said, I can't remember exactly who the officers were, but what they told the committee was that because all of these instances where they're with the errors, they have to be reported to this system, and they have to also be forwarded to the program manager and copy the Bureau of Compliance commander, that they were like, we're going to have the data anyway. So all you have to do is just ask for the data.
So this was the, it's
But
putting the responsibility and burden on us to ask for data they should already be sending. ShotSpotter, if anyone does research, they have the data. They can just send it to us, CCing us, CCing our executive director on a quarterly report. I'm not asking them to create something separate.
Actually, in fact, you are. There's a requirement to create something separate because there is no quarterly report of errors.
But they're reporting all errors.
Right.
So
But
to
that's not a quarterly
To the
report.
chair, can I just ask, why are we, if we're asking for quarterly reports, why are we, and we're mandating they create it, why do we only want the errors? I mean, that's only looking at the negatives of the situation. You don't know the whole, I mean, they could give you a list of 10 errors and you would say, well, is that a lot? Is that a little? So if you're asking for, why are we only focusing on error data? If we want to see the totality of ShotSpotter, why would we only ask for, well, we only want to see the quarterly errors? Wouldn't it make sense to see the whole quarterly report of how many calls for service, what was the average time, how many negatives were there in the quarter, like
To the
all
executive
of
director,
it?
I'm okay with that. I only said errors because people are worried about capacity, and I was just trying to have a happy medium. I just think it would be a extremely disservice. As like I'm literally saying, I will lead a work group on this, make another thing. But I think that we need to proactively have this type of data from ShotSpotter in particular. There's a reason Youngstown, Detroit, and Chicago have all in the past 3 years ended their contract with them. So I'm just asking, can we do that?
So if they're going to do reports already, you can just add a sentence in here that says any report associated with ShotSpotter will automatically be sent to the commission. Like instead of errors and all of that, just whenever they generate a report for commanders or the chief or whatever, you just have them CC the commission with the report.
So
Can
then I
rephrase
would
my amendment to what?
Then I would suggest that we put that under section 6 data, B analytics. There are currently 2 subsections. We could add a third subsection that the program manager and the Bureau of Compliance commander will forward such reports to the CPC.
Now,
Is that
where we at that? I just want to make
That's
sure I get
my
it right.
amendment.
I understand the amendment. I'm trying to find out. It's gonna go under 6B. Are we creating number 3 from
we
1
would?
and
I
2?
would say we create number 3, or it
Okay.
could be in number 2. I don't mean. But I'm confused because I'm hearing like on the one hand we don't really have the capacity to get weekly,
don't.
monthly, and annual reports. So I'm concerned that we're going to be getting reports, so we won't do anything else. But that's
I'm going to suggest that we table this and send it back to committee because I think that you're bringing a good, like you're saying, we should be doing a deeper dive into ShotSpotter. I agree with you on that. And I also think that like right now under analytics, that is just reports on gunfire activity. And so I feel like that's not really what we're trying to get at either. So let's send this back to committee. If we want to create a work group to address ShotSpotter, let's do it. But I think that I agree with you in principle, and I think that let's send it back to committee.
that.
Another thing that, and I'm happy to support on this in any way that you want me to, but part of what we're lacking is outlining the specific information in this hypothetical report and what it's going to look like. So, for example, what a good use of time in the committee would be outlining a template of this is exactly what we want a table that addresses X, we want a chart that addresses Y. To Commissioner Chur's point, we want a map of GIS that pictures A, B, C, and D. So but that's for committee work and not for tonight's meeting. So happy to support that any way I can, but I just also want to reinforce what Commissioner Benito is saying.
Do I need to make a motion for that?
Yeah, I mean, I can withdraw the motion, that's fine.
No,
But,
listen.
yeah.
What I'm thinking is, could she withdraw
Yeah, sure.
her amendment, and then we pass this, and then we can always change it anytime.
Right.
So we move forward and we do, everything.
But passing it would mean that the police can start utilizing it immediately, right?
Yes, they can, and I think this is, if I may, to the chairs, this ShotSpotter had been in discussion for months and months in a work group. And so I would like, I'm liking this idea of passing it. We can go back to, this issue was raised about the reports at the very tail end of the process, and we've had another committee meeting about it, and we decided to take this approach. And I would welcome your participation in the next round of this, but I really do feel like right now there's nothing, the GPO that we passed is not in place because they're waiting for us to do this. And the longer we wait, the more time will pass without the improvements we made to the GPO. And there are improvements. We changed things that we approved a few months ago. So I would suggest that we go forward with it as it is, and then we revisit it in committee and decide what we want it to look like.
Why
Once
are
you
they
figure
not
things out
enacting-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, once you figure things out and you guys have the work group and you have, request the data and you see what you want to see, then we can make the corrections to that section or add that to the section later. But right now, we need to move forward with the work that we've already done. We need to push, they spent a lot of hours on this, a lot of time. We can't let that be in vain. We need to push this work forward. So we're going to, I ask that you withdraw your amendment. You guys take this discussion back to policy, form a work group, work on that, but in the meantime, let's move the rest of the work forward.
I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you very much. And we're going to call the vote for revised gunshot detection GPO. Co-Chair Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Abstain.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Abstain.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, another quick update. I'm just going to, we were working in the surveillance technology work group on automatic license plate readers, and wearable cameras and in-car cameras, and eventually on Fusus. And then there's a number of other issues that are before us: use of force, vehicle pursuit, social media by members, and the discipline matrix. So that's just a quick update, and you'll be hearing more about those.
Thank you very much. We're going to move forward to our outreach committee report given by committee member Kate Kennedy.
Hello, it's me, the only member of the outreach committee. Oh, okay. So we're not meeting, we are not currently meeting because we don't have quorum. So my update is twofold. One is the RFP now there's a lot of RFPs, so it can get a little squirrely because they're also of similar names. So I'm talking specifically about the community satisfaction survey. The RFP is still posted, but it's gone past its due date, which means that we're able to solicit proposals from various polling firms that can help support this work and ensure efficiency and effectiveness and accuracy. So I've been reaching out to some highly regarded and reliable polling firms from that. So I'm hopeful that we'll get a proposal here soon. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, Executive Director Goodrick is on the CPOP RFP for community engagement assessment. I would like to talk to you about that more specifically along the lines of potentially framing that RFP as a program evaluation. Okay, so maybe we can talk more about that, and I would like to be helpful in writing that as well. That concludes my report. Thank you.
And I'll just say, one of the community members that came in today during our office hours, she was very interested in creating a work group in the outreach committee related to CPOP projects or things like that, around community violence and things like that. So I'll connect. We're going to meet, and then after we meet, I'll connect you to.
Okay.
All right.
I don't, yeah, because we don't have a quorum, we're not meeting. So just let me know how to navigate that, I
Okay,
guess,
we'll figure it
moving
out.
forward.
We'll
Okay.
figure it out. Okay, so we're going to move forward to the Police Training Committee, and that report is going to be given by Commissioner Donaldson.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So, real quick, the last police training committee meeting was June the 12th. During that meeting, we had 3 different items that we passed for final approval, which were the trauma-informed training, the CDP 2024 needs assessment, as well as the CDP 3-year training plan. Those 3 items received the final approval because of the fact that they were already reviewed by the Police Training Committee as well as the full commission. So when we reviewed those, we were just looking at DOJ and MT feedback to make sure it was all good, and then we sent that forward. The reality-based training community event is scheduled for August the 24th. That is a Saturday. The last event was December of last year, if you all remember. So myself, Executive Director Goodrick, some officers from the CPD training section, and the principal of Garrett Morgan High School, we all did a walkthrough on Friday, June 14th. So right now, we're just waiting for the permits and approvals to be given for that event. So the CPD training session is taking the lead on receiving those permits and approvals for that event. Once that's done, the reality-based training event work group will meet to discuss the details of the event. My hope is that we won't really have to meet much because we've already done this before, so we're just kind of looking at the feedback we received from the last event to determine how we want to move forward for the event in August. So again, I will repeat, Saturday, August 24th will be the reality-based training community event. Also, Executive Director Goodrick is in the process of putting a save the date together so that we can start promoting this event. I do ask that all of my fellow commissioners help us out in promoting the event, please, because I don't want to be pulling, teeth try to get y'all to do that. So please help us out so that we can get a good turnout. Again, it will be at Garrett Morgan High School. For tonight, we are seeking approval for a couple of items. These items were sent to commissioners on June the 12th. The first one is the OPOTA mandated trainings motions, or the mandated trainings. And that's the same thing as the state mandated CPT lesson plans. So on the agenda, it's listed as 2 separate items, but that's actually the same thing. So first motion would be to approve the OPOTA mandated trainings, which, like I said, is also the state mandated CPT lesson plans. I do want to note that these plans, we cannot make any changes to these. These are state mandated, so it was really just sent to us for approval.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion or any questions? All right, we'll move forward with the vote. Co-Chair Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Commissioner Gare Ferguson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
All right, thank you for that. Second one would be the integrated reality-based training curriculum. So that was also sent on June 12th. And I would like to move for that to be approved as well.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Are there any questions or discussion regarding this motion?
I'll just add, it was really well done. It had a crisis scenario, it had a domestic violence scenario, and we made some additional suggestions of kind of additional discussion and additional resources we wanted them to share with officers. So I thought it is really well done. This is something that Commander McGruth and Lieutenant Smith and the training section have really pushed to do training that is less a PowerPoint talking head and more actually really having the officers walk through these scenarios. And so I was really pleased with it.
Thank you. We're going to call for the vote. Co-Chair Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
All right, thank you. The next training, police training committee meeting will be Wednesday, July the 10th. And that's all I have. Huh? It's the same thing. You weren't listening? No, it's the same. The state mandated plans are the same thing as the OPOTA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Donaldson. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a report from the Ad Hoc Hiring Committee. Are you going to give that?
We don't have a chair of that committee,
Okay.
but we are working with Janita to get a meeting scheduled. Another doodle poll was sent out today, so we should have something scheduled by the end of the week.
Okay. Thank you for that update. And the next thing on the agenda is the Ad Hoc Outside Council Committee. Are there any members from that committee here?
Got nothing to say, you know.
Okay, so there's no update for that right now. So we're, oh, go ahead.
I mean, I do think we should be okay. We have a couple minutes. The opinion was sent to us. I don't, Commissioner Wong sent an email saying there's been no action on it, which is true. We read the opinion, and so I guess it's a question for us about whether there's a meeting needs to be had. We need to meet with him. I mean, I think that the question in the that we posed was, does the city have the right to refuse to give us records? And the opinion, I'm very much generalizing, but says no, they don't have the right. But I think that's also, the courts have also mandated that they need to give us the records, and I think that there's a much more collaborative approach being taken right now. So, I mean, I do think it's worth us asking. We did engage counsel to get an answer to this question. Are we saying that we're going to table this until further notice, or I think just if we spent the money to get it, we should probably have some sort of recognition of we received it. Are there any next steps that we need to take, or is that all we need to do?
Yeah, and maybe that would just, maybe that would be accomplished by, the committee just getting together and having that meeting and talking to each other about it. Yeah.
Well, to be clear, I think who is on the committee? Commissioner Turner, myself, and Commissioner Ridgway. Is that the committee?
Yeah.
And when does Commissioner Ridgway come back from?
August 1st.
Oh, okay. So I guess we have a quorum with the two of us. We can move forward, but we'll
And if
take
one of us need to step in, we
that. Yeah,
can.
you can step in. Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay.
But I think it's important, I mean, just looking at that, it did say that they need to give us records, but it also said silent on process. So, and that's what we're working on now, is the process. So I feel like that's really what matters.
So we both should probably meet. All four of us probably meet. Okay. Okay, we're going to move forward to the next item on the agenda, old business. Is there any old business? Okay. We'll move forward to new business.
Yes, Mark, we're still here.
Legislative authority.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Still awake? We're still here. We're getting stuff done. I'm really happy. So good to see you all. this was something that came to my attention when we started to go through the process of trying to introduce things to City Council. So essentially, there are only 3 ways to get things in front of City Council. You either have to go and ask a City Council member to put something on the committee for you. You have to ask the mayor to sponsor something for you, or you have to be a department, and then you can go more directly to City Council and put it on there yourself. But the CPC, since we were created in this whole 115.5 charter situation, it's not technically a department. And so that made things very confusing in terms of, okay, how can the CPC introduce legislation? And we're not talking about, one thing in particular, but, we have a couple of things that are going in front of council soon, approval for the United Black Fund contract. We're talking about food problems recently, getting approval for that. We're talking a bunch of stuff. So this is sort of going to create a new framework. What we saw in the codified ordinances is that there is a codified ordinance that lists other entities that are similarly situated to the commission itself and says these entities, for legislative purposes, are treated as departments. So they should be able to do that themselves. So essentially what this is proposing is that we're going to modify that codified ordinance to add ourselves to the list. And then the Department of Finance is going to sponsor that for us, and then we're going to put that in front of City Council to get it approved. So if they add that, it makes it a lot easier for us. We don't have to be begging City Council members to sponsor things for us or to have the mayor sponsor things for us, because I think that'd be really sticky either way. So hopefully we can bring this. We wanted to bring this to the full commission because this is changing something fundamental from what was originally created, so we need your approval, but hopefully this is just a thing that we can move forward. Thank you. Yes. No, we're not changing a rule. So we're not amending something in the rule book. We're asking for a majority approval to move to make this, we have a draft motion, don't we? Was that shared with you all? It essentially said that, well, I don't want to quote it without, if you could help me out, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I can't sponsor this, or somebody has to say this on my behalf, but I motion to give the Commission's Executive Director the authority to collaborate with the City's Law Department in submitting a request for legislation to amend City Codified Ordinance Section 121.01. The proposed amendment should include language that adds the Commission to the ordinance's list of entities that the City recognizes as departments for legislation purposes. Anyone want to sponsor that?
I move to say the things that was just read.
Okay.
This is in the email I sent you guys on Friday.
Thank you, Jason.
It's in there?
Second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table for the commission to be added to the city's legislative authority. And it was seconded. Are there any questions or discussion or debate? All right, let's call for the vote. Co-Chair Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez? Yes. And I vote yes. Thank you, Martin.
The last item on the agenda is I would like to leave the Rules Committee. So I move I move to remove myself from the Rules Committee.
I guess I'll second that. It's kind of weird, but I second that.
All right. I hope nobody debates what her wishes are. So let's call for that. Let's call for that vote. Co-Chair Adams?
Yes.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Sorry, aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Yes. You're free. All right, so we have 5 minutes left. Is there any public comment at this time?
just make it real quick about these records. And I talked to the chairs earlier today about the records. So I'm going to get with Citizens for Safer Cleveland so we can get with Carl Racine, because it seemed like you got some of the records and they're still stagnated on the records. And we're going to send a letter to the judge, because we always, even though we're not a party, I'm like I am a process server too, and I do take it over to the court, get it stamped, and take it up to the judge's chambers so he can read it and let him know what's going on, because you need the records to do your job, and I'm going to keep emphasizing that, and I'm going to be sending Mark Griffin an email this evening, once I talk to the president, on why are they still holding up these records. You're supposed to see everything. You don't have to go like through a regular public record request like I would. You're the commission. And what is the issue here? This has been going on long enough, and we need to push this through and give you what you need so you can do what you need to do so it can move forward. So that's where I'm at with it. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, and once again, thank you all for your service. My remarks will be somewhat restricted, but I want to assure you that the records request is under review by the monitoring team as well as DOJ. We're looking at what's being redacted. The judge has said, DOJ has said, the monitoring team continues to say, you will receive your records. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Steve.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Sorry, I'm short. I'm glad that you guys have this makeup meetings, and all of you who are not on the leave of absence or vacations or whatever are all here. However, throughout the discussion, I think now you understand why some of the items it went more efficiently or more effectively when Commissioner Terry Wong was in charge of certain committees. These things are...
It's not about Terry Wong.
That's not your business,
It's not,
what I'm saying.
This is not about Terry Wong.
I'm not saying it's about a particular commissioner.
Yeah, but it's not about
I
Terry
didn't
Wong.
interrupt you. Would you please not interrupt me?
No.
This is not about name calling.
I didn't call
The-
it.
This is about the way of thinking. I have mentioned that many times before. Today, when one of our commissioner came back from her leave of absence, she had a clear mind. So she addressed the issue which nobody wanted to address during the committee sessions. So now we have to put something back to the committee to rediscuss and to reorganize or to refine. This is the reason why I mentioned lots of points in the past. And today, you may see it, you may not see it. You may think that the way you work right now is the best. However, sometimes it's not. Even you work in harmony, it looks like it, but sometimes that doesn't mean it's the best way to work. So please, open up your mind, keep your ears and eyes open. There are lots of situations you may not encounter, but other people may think of it. Sometimes it may be from community members. That's the reason why having work groups is a very helpful thing. Sometimes it could be from any of you. So please, don't reject one another. To work together, yes, even siblings will have fights. When moms give out candies, you got a red one, but he got the blue ones. You got 2 and somebody else got 3. These things happen. Please understand, all of you
Time.
have a good mind, but
I'm sorry,
you have
Lou.
to
That's-
adjust your thinking.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the community that came in person and that watched online, and thank you to the commissioners for coming to the meeting and your service to the community. Meeting adjourned.
It's not about you.